Thank you. Hello. Hope the audio is okay on this. I will check this eventually. Welcome to week 6. We're going to go over the early and middle childhood and adolescent. I'm going to do those in 3 separate videos so that they're smaller chunks of information. And so let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me find the right screen. Should be that one. We'll share it. All right. So I am going to move into student view, view as student. Make sure all your links work. There we go. Hey. And I'm on the home page, which takes us to week 6. I posted the overview video that goes over the assignments. And we're going to start with early childhood. So I'm going to click on that link. And early childhood is talking about toddlers and preschoolers. So we used to actually separate those out into 2 different categories. Now they kind of blend them together, but there are distinct developmental differences between toddlers and preschoolers, as evidenced by Erikson's stages of development. For Piaget, toddlers and preschoolers tend to they're in the same developmental stage. Morley, for Kohlberg, they kind of overlap as well. So in your readings and in the lesson, you will be able to describe the main physical characteristics common to toddlers and preschoolers. Toddlers, they get that name because they call it toddling around. If you look at toddlers, they kind of have a bigger belly and they kind of toddle a little bit. Preschoolers have grown a little bit taller. Their center of gravity is more in the middle, and so they are better able to with their gross motor movements, they're better able to do that and more coordinated. 3 developmental milestones the toddler and preschooler can accomplish. So things like being able to use a pencil or a crayon, or gross motor movements as well, in terms of like riding a tricycle, something that a preschooler would do, probably not a toddler, because they don't have the muscle strength and the coordination yet. And then cognitive development with Piaget, and the psychosocial tests, we just talked about those. And the moral development, we'll talk, there's information in that lesson as well. And then anticipatory guidance, discuss the importance of anticipatory guidance when educating parents about early childhood. Nutrition is the example that we're going to use, but safety, anything actually. Anticipatory guidance is something I think is very important because it has to do with safety, and it has to do with expectations, like parental expectations, what a parent should expect their child to be able to do. So anticipatory means that we're going to anticipate what's going to be happening with the child. And so the parent is better able to meet those developmental needs. So remember when you worked on, or you should be currently working on, your developmental screening tools, looking those over and figuring out which tool might fit which child. So we look at those, and you had your Bright Futures as examples that you could look at the visit when the child is 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and anticipate what the child should be able to do. And so then we can educate the parents. For example, the example I usually give is a toddler may or may not be potty trained. It usually takes boys a little bit longer than girls, but not always. Children usually are, sometimes they can urinate or have a bowel movement at night. That's not uncommon. But if the parent thinks that a 2-year-old is going to be entirely potty trained for urine and stool, and never have accidents, it's not a realistic expectation. So as health professionals, it's our job to provide that anticipatory guidance and let them know, hey, they're going to be really, really curious. So you need your safety gates, you need your bumpers on your tables, you need to have them in their car seats. You can't take them out, when they're in the car, and talk to them about those things so that the parent has realistic expectations and doesn't punish the child for not meeting unrealistic expectations, and also to keep the child safe. And then you are going to, some of you have done this, perform a toy evaluation for a toddler and preschooler, and then 3 common safety hazards for toddlers and preschoolers. So safety, swallowing things. Toddlers put a lot of things still in their mouths, or because they toddle, they fall sometimes. So they might fall on something or poke themselves with a toy, sharp toy or something. So safety, those are things that can happen. And then you've got your reading in the Lumen Learning, Chapter 5, Chapter 4, Lally and Valentine French. They are fairly similar, but there are some things that they talk about separately. So like child abuse or COVID tends to be in, I believe it's Lally and French Valentine. So there are some different things. And then Course Hero also gives information in a little bit different style. They also have a lecture and a slideshow, so that might help some of you. But these are the sections to focus on with the reading. And then we will go into the lesson in a minute. And then your assignment is the early childhood toy evaluation, which that's gone over in the overview video, as well as the journal questions. So you have your choice, question 1 or question 2. And what I'm trying to do as we move into, well, we're in week 6, but as we move into week 7 and 8, because you have so much going on, is limiting the journal entries to 1 for each topic, so that my expectation is still that you do your best job with that and really reflect as much as you can. But I'm not going to have 3 and 4 questions for each section. Everybody's doing really well, and just keep going, continue to go deep and think about it, reflect about it, look at it from different viewpoints, things from different viewpoints, and you will be fine there. All right, so let us go to the lesson. So 6.1, again, we're talking about the toddlers and preschoolers. This link will take you back to the overview. Actually, I believe that's the module, actually. Yeah. And then here we have your objectives again, and the reading again, just so you have all the information that you need. There's your activities, assignments, and your journal entries. So we will look at the PowerPoints here in a second. I also want to show you, I found a website called The Whole Child, and let's click on that. So that's 0 to 5. So that is toddlers and preschoolers. And then that link didn't work. Okay, well, I will go back and check on that link because it worked 2 weeks ago. If you get to that Whole Child page, you should be able to click on these links. Let me see. Let's go back and just do, I just want to see if it will go. Probably not. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so there is one, there is a page, it does exist. There we go. Let's see if it gives us a, I believe it's parent enrichment. Let's see, there we go, parent enrichment. And so there's lots of different information there. I will go back and find the page that I actually thought it was supposed to be, because it has more information. I wonder if maybe they updated the site and I just didn't realize it. Parent enrichment. Okay, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I will move ahead. But I had thought it was a really good resource, so I will go back and follow up on that. We are also looking at autism spectrum disorder, so you can click on that to get you to the Autism Speaks webpage. And this goes into, you all may have different history with autism spectrum disorder, either yourself, your family, maybe some friends that you know. And so it really now is considered a broad range of conditions, disorders, and it's a lot of challenges with social skills and interacting with people. There could be speech or communication issues, and the statistic is 1 in 36 children and 1 in 45 adults have some type of autism. And so it talks about challenges that you have with that. And I guess my big thing was I didn't realize, I mean, I have now known for some time, but when I was first studying this, that there are different types. We just used to say, oh, they're autistic. We didn't realize that there was a whole spectrum, and that it would affect adults. I mean, that makes sense. I just never really thought about it that way. And then there's something called the neurodiversity paradigm. Neurodiversity is kind of a big buzzword these days. And so being neurodiverse means that you're different. And we used to, everybody's different, right? And so that's why we talked about bias a couple weeks back as well, when we talked about culture, and you did that discussion board that you did in terms of bias. And so, you know, what is it? Why do we care if somebody's neurodiverse? And again, I go back to we're all diverse. And so this article will talk to you about strengths-based autism, because people that have autism or a disorder on the spectrum have gifts and talents. And so what we need to do, excuse me, especially as healthcare providers, is try to let people understand that there are positives, there are gifts, there are good things that you're okay, that there are gifts that people have. And so we need to be looking for the gifts and not always the what we would consider to be different or quote unquote bad things. So people just see the world in different ways. And so that's what I really liked this this particular page, you know, about how it's related, and you know, being diverse humanizes us. I love that. So go ahead and take a look at that, and it will talk to you all about neurodiversity. And then learning about, continuing talking about autism spectrum disorder, neurodiversity, there is the what's known as the social model of disability. And so this particular article explains that. I thought it was a nice article. And I thought the statistic 15% of the global population experience some form of disability, according to the World Health Organization. 1 in 4 adults in the United States live with a disability, which I thought that was really interesting. A physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. And we do have the American with Disabilities Act. You may know someone, you may have a disability. And so we have the medical model, which talks about it's a disability, we have to fix it, there's something wrong with the person, there's something wrong with their body, their mind, their feelings, their vision, their hearing, their movement. Could be many different things, could be layered different problems, if you will. And so that's kind of how I was taught about disabilities. And again, we need to look at the strengths that people with disabilities have. And so if it's mobility, for example, that's why they came up with the Americans with Disabilities Act, so that there would be equitable access. For example, this example talks about a wheelchair and why you need to have a ramp. And so the disability under the medical model puts the burden on the person with the disability, like they need to get their act together, or they need to do something to be able to access the building or whatever it is. And it's really not. It's really our world that needs to accommodate, if you will, or notice that the person has a disability, and how can we use our critical thinking and figure out some way to make the playing field equitable. And so when we talk about the social model of disability, this was developed more by the activists in the 70s and 80s, and does not necessarily follow the medical model. And so if we actually thought about where we lived, again, going back to your communities when you were doing your community surveys, and do you have accessible buildings, accessible places? Do you have tools for those with visual impairments or hearing impairments so that they can be productive members of society? Instead of looking at things as being bad, you know, they're just different. And so let's get everybody, so everybody has access to things. That's the social model of disability. And so I think that's really a better way to look at disability. Close these windows out here. And then there's also something called the double empathy problems. So Double Empathy Explained. Again, I thought this was a really cool article, and that this particular article is talking about the double empathy theory, challenging the idea that social difficulties are specific to autism, and suggests that problems arise from a mismatch in perspective between autistic and non-autistic people. So when we're talking about autism, it's just a different perspective, right? Me as a non-autistic person, I see the world a little bit differently. I experience the world a little bit differently than a person who has autism or who's on the autism spectrum disorder. So it kind of goes back to the neurodiversity idea. And you can listen to this, or you can read it. And so again, we're trying to focus on the strengths of people, not the things that they cannot do, the things that they can do. Or is there some way that we can help them, help people to participate, to fully participate in life? And so, just looking, is there anything else I was thinking about? So the empathy, if you have empathy for somebody, like we might have empathy. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy. So sympathy, I tend to think of sympathy feeling sorry for somebody. So if they have a disability and I'm sympathetic, I kind of feel sorry for them. I know there's a problem, but I'm not really trying to feel what they feel or kind of understand from their perspective or wear their shoes about it. Empathy has to do with really feeling what it's like to be in that other person's shoes. So if I'm empathetic to someone with autism, I'm really trying to figure out what their perspective is. How are they seeing the world? And then they, as an autistic person, I think we're turning this around, but the autistic person also may have sympathy or empathy for us because we're not autistic, not on the autism spectrum disorder, on the autism spectrum disorder scale. And so if they could have empathy for us and we could have empathy for them, we'd both be able to see each other's perspectives, and that would make life learning in general just better for everybody. So I thought this was really nice. I think as healthcare professionals, these are really important concepts, regardless of if a person's on the autistic spectrum, because I think just as human beings, this is trying to see things from other people's points of view, I think is very important. Okay, and then there's a little video there, why everything you know about autism is wrong. So speaking to some of those points that we just talked about. And then the developmental screening. So I added in the ages and stages questionnaires for toddlers, for the 14, 16, 18, and so on months. And then for the preschoolers, the 4-year-olds. And then also the Bright Futures pre-visit parent questionnaires. You don't have to look through every single one of these, but it does. Let's see, let's look at the 2-year visit. So if you look at the 2-year pre-visit parent questionnaire, this is the questionnaire that the pediatrician is asking the parent to fill out prior to the visit. And so this has to do with all those developmental milestones. And so, asking, is there anything the parent wants to talk about? Talk to us about what's going on with the child and the family. Any special needs, special healthcare needs, other needs, any concerns that the parent has. And then it will go through telling the parent, we're going to, we might check for anemia, lipidemia. We're going to do hearing check, check if there's lead. We do have children with high amounts of lead in the Salinas Valley, in some of the older homes that are around, which is really sad. Or if we have, I've seen it where we've had mothers coming directly from Mexico who have a high lead level, and then the baby ends up having a high lead level as well. They're going to talk about dentists and oral health, tuberculosis, vision screenings, and then here's that anticipatory guidance piece of it. Now, it also includes, for example, intimate partner violence. So that has to do with the actual parents. And then, do they have nutrition, food, their living situation, alcohol, drugs? It just goes through that whole thing. And so I think it's a really good way hopefully the parent is reflecting on this. It does also come in Spanish and some other languages as well. And then we see here normal development, and it'll go through developmental milestones. Now the parent does have to be able to read this in order to answer the questions. If they can't, then we could ask them the questions, and then we could scribe, we could write for them, which would work. Let's keep going down. And then there's some videos here showing different milestones for a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I would say watch how they play, because the younger ones will do parallel play. They might be all playing with blocks, but they're playing independently. Like this child's playing here and this child's playing here, both playing with blocks. They're not really interacting. When you get to the preschoolers, then they're starting to get closer to pretend play and getting there and doing things for themselves, figuring things out. They do a lot of imitation. That's why they like to do a lot of dress up. And you'll see that they'll play with each other, not just next to each other. And there's preschoolers growth and development. So just a little, for those of you that don't have children or don't have access to children, there's that information. And then this is another video. I love finding these TED Talk videos. I think some of them are really, really cool. And this particular person, Dimitri Christakis, talks about media and children. And so media, when I was growing up, was TV. That was media. Maybe like when I was 16, I got a phone in my room. So there was my media, other than TV. We didn't have cell phones. Maybe we got to go to a movie every so often. I watched the nightly news. There weren't all these different cable news networks or cable networks with all these shows on them. Nowadays, I think our kids are over inundated with media and sources, and trying to figure out what source is the most reputable source. Who's telling the truth, who's telling the total truth, those kind of things. So that's kind of an interesting video that he presents. And then we don't necessarily think about, I don't anyway, think about depression in young children, but you do see depression in 3 to 8-year-olds. If we think about the types of lifestyles that some of these children are living in through no fault of their own, I could see where they might be depressed. And so these articles talk about recognizing depression and anxiety, how children manifest that, because they don't really have a word to say, I'm anxious. Right. I remember it took me a long time to figure out what that, like those butterflies in your stomach kind of thing, and my heart rate getting a little bit faster, and realizing, oh, that's what anxiety is. Okay. And it doesn't go away sometimes. Okay. Again, looking at child abuse, how to, or not again, but looking at child abuse in the 0 to 5-year-olds, how to recognize that. And then we just talked about depression and child abuse, and then divorce, because divorce, the relationship that the parents have, can affect children and their development as well, usually in not a great way. And then there's nutrition, talking about toddler nutrition and preschooler nutrition. Stanford Children's Hospital, hopefully these links work, oh, I know why, because the module's not open. That's why that's going to go. But I will double check that. Let's see. Some really good information on toddler and preschooler nutrition. Nice little lists with serving sizes and such. And then health screenings. So we are going to be talking through each age group about different types of health screenings. We talked a little bit about that with the infant. We talked about the hearing screen and the newborn screen. And so now as we go through the toddler and preschooler, we're going to be checking their vision and their hearing, and that will happen when they go in for their physicals. We'll check blood work, we'll do some labs, check the iron, check their hemoglobin levels, and then they need vaccinations. And so this is a link to the schedule, to the CDC schedule. And then this is a picture of the vaccines that are required, and vaccines are required to enter into school. They will check your immunization record. I am remiss that I don't know where we are exactly on being excused from having to have the vaccinations. I think children are required to have all the vaccinations, or they have to be homeschooled, but I don't know the exact legislature or law on that. right now. So I apologize. You also have something that's called a vaccine information statement. I don't know. Oh, that one goes. Okay. And so vaccine information statements, it's a piece of paper, looks like that, and it has all kinds of different information on it about the vaccine, English, Spanish, Tagalog, all kinds of different languages they come in. You can access them here on the CDC site, and it is great you need to give it to the parent before the child receives the immunization. So if they have any questions, they can ask you. And then it also gives information on how to complete an adverse reaction form, which I think we talk about a little bit later. But you are supposed to make sure that the family has the information sheet prior to the child receiving the vaccine. And then this is one of your journal questions having to do with the Children's Health Defense Mission, and gives you hopefully the website there. And so it gives you these statistics, which I thought was interesting for you to think about in terms of in 1986, there were 6 vaccines and 25 doses of those vaccines because our DTaP, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, you had so many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You've got your initial injection, or 4, I guess, 5, your initial injection series, and then you would have a booster before first grade, usually preschool somewhere. And then polio, measles, mumps, rubella, the oral polio virus. We don't see that anymore. We really don't see that. And then Tdap for the older child. And then as you scroll through the different years, just in 2000, there were 11 vaccines. So we got 5 more vaccines, and it runs a comparison. And so because we added those 5, we added 5 more doses. So we added in varicella, which has to do with chickenpox. Those are still the same. And we added in Hep A. And so those, I don't think we added in the flu yet. Oh, and they had the Haemophilus B influenza. So those are added into the schedule because it was found through research that children were dying from those diseases, those viruses. And so this was a way to not be spreading those terrible diseases around. And then in 5 years, from 2000 to 2005, on the vaccine schedule, we're at 15 vaccines and 53 doses, because we added in flu, we added in the meningococcal, we added in the HPV, human papillomavirus. So as we were able to make more and more vaccines, so that's where we are on that, I believe. Yep. And so this is the 2023 vaccine schedule. So 17 vaccines. And how many did we have in 1986? We had 6 vaccines. So 6 vaccines. Now we have 17. So that's 11 more vaccines and 73 doses. So I think you need to get your vaccines. So there are some people that don't for different reasons. They have their reasoning. And it's just interesting. I don't know. We went from 25 doses to 73. So that's almost 3 times the number of doses of vaccines. And they're not necessarily spaced out. The child gets them, if it's your 2-month vaccines, you're probably getting 5 or 6 vaccines. So I can see why people might be concerned about that. This is the vaccine adverse event reporting system. This information, again, is on the back of the vaccine information sheet. And so if there is any adverse reaction, swelling, redness, if there's a rash, a fever, vomiting, anything like that, that is supposed to be reported using the VAERS reporting system. And so, and then you can go in and track. Oh, that takes us to the same place. That's okay. And you can run statistics on what are the most common side effects, and that's where the information for the vaccine information sheet comes from the adverse reporting forms. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then let us look through the PowerPoint. I'll go back and check that link. Let's look at the toddler and the preschooler. Again, I know these are PowerPoints from like 2020. but not a whole lot of things have changed. So please excuse that the weeks are different and my credentials are different there. I didn't update them. And so these are pictures of toddlers, right? There's some fine motor movement. They have temper tantrums. They're learning to feed themselves. They're walking around now. You can see kind of a little bow-legged there. So moving around is a little bit challenging sometimes. And little cutie. Toddlerhood, usually 1 to 3 years. The growth rate now is slow and steady. Remember, infants just like, whoa, like these little babies. And then by the end of the first year, they're maybe most of them walking. And so as they get to toddlerhood, the growth rate slows, but it's also more steady. You don't see these growth spurts necessarily. And the growth spurts are not as evident as they are in the infant. They acquire and grow their fine and gross motor skills. They're learning a lot more words. No is a very popular word for a 2-year-old. And independence or autonomy, right? That's a developmental stage. And so these are just different characteristics. You do not need to know these for the quiz or anything, but that's just your average height and weight. And what else? Face and teeth. The teeth start to come in. When should you take your child to the dentist? So hopefully at least by 2 years old, when they start having teeth, for sure, you can brush them. The parent has to do the brushing. The child is not going to be able to brush their own teeth. And so I love this picture because the child is in the mom's lap. And so the child can feel safe being in their mom's lap while the dentist or dental assistant is doing the dental care. And so, thumb sucking, that gives you an overbite. It will pull the top out. And then sensory, the depth perception is better. Oh my goodness, yes. Eye muscles develop, so they aren't necessarily as cross-eyed. Depth perception, babies don't have depth perception. So when they come to the top of stairs, it looks flat to them. It doesn't look like they're going to be going downstairs. And so that's why we want those baby gates up so that they don't fall down the stairs because they can't tell. They don't have the depth perception. Talking about hearing and the upper airway, why kids get colds, why they get ear infections. The child's eustachian tube is a lot flatter than the adults. And so a lot of fluid can accumulate and bacteria can get there. Look, fine motor movement with the crayon. And really, really trying to be independent. They want to want to do everything themselves. Sometimes they'll go backwards down the stairs. That's okay. Running and falling, get back up again. And then with the gross motor skills, walking, running, going upstairs, going downstairs, do they walk, one at a time up or down the stairs? So they go 1 foot, stop, 1 foot, stop. There's different patterns that you can see. And again, remember that the development goes in the same, order. It's just a different pace for different children. Hopping, stairs, running, climbing, different things that should be able to happen at 1 year's 15 months. So if you look at the Denver developmental screening tool, that one has been around for a long, long time. And it I think does a really good job of delineating out these fine and gross motor skills as well as language and social skills. They're going to learn how to be using spoons. So here's anticipatory guidance. So if I think my 15-month-old is going to be able to eat with a spoon and not spill anything, I'm crazy, because they will be better able to use a spoon as they get older, but it's still going to be difficult and they want to play with their food, and that's perfectly normal. They do start to get a hand preference around 15 months, and then talking about getting dressed and undressed. The undressed is really not a problem. Take things off. Learning how to button something or zip something, that is a challenge. There's your potty training, different things. There's these little pull-ups, little potty seats. They're going to develop bowel control before bladder control. But they need to be able to tell you that they have to go. They need to understand what it is their body's doing-ish. Usually by 3.5, they're bladder trained. They get trained in the daytime before the nighttime because we're giving them more cues during the daytime. but the parent needs to expect accidents. So Erikson, autonomy, right? Developing autonomy, mine, me, mine. No, because they want to do it. And you have to explain to the parent that it's going to take extra time. Everything takes extra time with the toddler and the preschooler. Although if it's a safety need, there's not much negotiation. The parent is the one that's going to be laying down the law there. Your little teddy bear there. Psychosocial concerns, separation anxiety, perfectly normal. Try to use references about when you'll be back in terms that the child would understand. Toddlers don't really have a concept of time. Preschoolers will be a little bit better with that. Sibling rivalry may happen. Regression will happen. And sometimes parents don't understand that when there's a new child, if they move, new schools, anything new kind of illness can set the child back a little bit. And then they will usually recover in a certain time frame. It just depends on the child and what the situation was. But for example, if they have to go into the hospital for some reason, they might end up, and they were potty trained, they might end up wetting the bed. Just because it's a new environment and they lose their routine and all of that kind of thing. And so that's, again, perfectly normal. Discipline and guidance. So guiding and teaching, correcting behavior, not a punishment. So that's what discipline, right? Discipline, disciple, guiding, teaching, correcting behavior, I don't want to say don't punish your child because people have been raised different ways and have different ways of doing things. But if we really try to guide and teach and use that anticipatory guidance, it's very, very helpful. So timeouts, 1 minute for each year of age, put them, in a place where there's limited distractions, be consistent, be really clear. I think consistency for toddlers and preschoolers is really, really important. Praise, positive reinforcement is really good. And I think eliminating the temptations. If you don't want them to have a snack before bed, don't bake chocolate chip cookies at 6 o'clock at night, right? Because they're going to want it and you're going to tell them no, but all you can smell through the house is chocolate chip cookies. Corporal punishment, that means hitting, spanking, that type of thing. Some families are, that is something that they have done. It's a choice. I think if we give them, pros and cons, then the family might be better able to decide whether they want to choose that route for discipline. I'm not sure it necessarily teaches the child anything or how to learn, other than if they do something wrong, they get in trouble. I think we need to, kind of teach them, okay, here's my expectation. This is what I need you to do. Not that we have these long discussions with them, but I think it's better than just hitting them, if you will. And so cognitive and moral development. So Piaget, sensory motor, that's the infant. And when they start to speak, that sensory motor is pretty much, we're done with that. And we're going into what's called pre-operational thought. Pre-operational thought is very egocentric, not in a bad way. When we say egocentric, we tend to think, that person only thinks of themselves in a bad way. But a 2-year-old, that's all they know. That's the only perspective they have. So they can't really look at things from another person's point of view. They can really only look at it from them being as the center, how things affect them. And they will also develop object permanence. That's why I like this little meme here. The teddy bear is still there, even though it's out of sight. So if you take a rattle or a teddy bear and you cover it with a blanket, once the child goes to take the blanket off, goes to look for the object, that's object permanence. They understand that it is still there even when they can't see it. Babies won't do that. You cover it up. It's kind of like peekaboo, right? You cover it up and they don't realize that that you're still there. And then moral development, learning right from wrong, again, with discipline, parents setting the example, be the example, and learning, which is really hard, self-control and sharing, because they're learning how to be, it's autonomy. I want to do it myself. Communication, their language is going to just blossom. These words will just come and come and come, and they will mimic, copy anything you say. So, and it's usually the bad things that you say that you don't want them to be repeating. But they can understand things that's receptive more than before they can express it. It's very difficult for them at this stage to express their feelings. They can receive your input, but a lot of being able to express is still internalized. Talks a little bit about that. Bilingual, I think being bilingual is great. Learning different words, different ages is great. Nutrition, you have a whole lesson, some information on nutrition, avoiding junk foods. We don't want to overfeed the child. If you actually look at the portion sizes, they're pretty small. And then, should be family time. Bring in the ethnic, cultural, folklore type of things. Simple table manners. To be able to sit at a table in a restaurant, hopefully, and not be throwing things all over the place, is a good thing. And then portioning out different sizes of things. So we just talked about, so portion control. They want to play with their food, little bite-sized handheld things, and you give them a bowl and you give them a spoon or a fork, and they're still gonna pick it up with their hands and dump it on their head. But we want small pieces, not things that they're gonna choke on, so not like hot dogs, things like that, but something that they can chew and not choke on. Sleep. They need sleep and rest, and it helps to be very, again, consistent. Consistency is very important. And having rituals. So, for example, at night, okay, it's not, we're getting ready for bed. So we know daddy reads a story, mommy gives us a bath and brushes our teeth. We sing a song, we say prayers, whatever it is, and then the lights go out and it's time to go to sleep. And there's a lot of different philosophies on how to get the child to sleep. I don't have the answer. If things are inconsistent, it's really hard for them to get to sleep. If they're sick, it's difficult. Sometimes they get what we call overtired. They're so tired, they can't fall asleep. And they might have bad dreams sometimes. I don't think Toddlers and Tiaras is on anymore, but it was this little like beauty pageant show for toddlers. And so there's natural processes of bodily functions. At toddlers and preschoolers, we don't really realize it's a boy or girl necessarily. And I'm going to use those terms for these developmental purposes, understanding that people look at gender differently. But the parents have an impact on molding the sexuality, expression of gender and sexuality in their infants and children. And then hopefully showing acceptance of hugging and kissing and affection is a good thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's something sexual. It's affection, to show affection to the child. Physical activity, 60 minutes every day, moderate to vigorous exercise, safety gear, right? Let them move, let them run, let them get their energy out, build that muscle strength. And there's play, right? Play, that's parallel play, kind of playing next to each other. And they copy us. They copy everything we do. And they do make-believe, they play alongside each other. That's parallel play. But it helps in all of those developmental stages. And then, different things that they want to choose as toys, pots and pans. You buy them all these toys, and what do? They go into the kitchen and they pull out the pots and pans and a wooden spoon and start banging on that instead. How do you feel about electronic devices? They're playing make-believe. Those are preschoolers. I like that one. And then safety, right? Always safety. So accident prevention, be proactive, not reactive, constant supervision. Don't turn your head. Get the immunizations. If there's recalls or safety alerts, make sure that they're following up on those. Dog safety, right? Don't just let them go up to any dog. Cover the outlets. Stay away from water, stranger danger. And then different accidents that toddlers might have. So for sure, motor vehicle accidents. So that's why it's so important to have the car seats in there and rules when you're in the car. They fall all over the place. They want to climb out of the crib and they fall. They can get burned, right? So if you have your pot on the stove, turn the handle in, not having it off the edge of the stove so the child can't reach it. Same with the bathtub, electrical outlets, electrical cords, really easy to choke on different things, really easy to get poisoned. We call it grandma's purse, or I call it grandma's purse, is the child will go through, they're at grandma's and they're going to go through their purse because grandma's like, here, honey, look through my purse, not realizing that her nitroglycerin or her high blood pressure medication is in there. And what did the child think it is? They think it's candy. So they go in and then they end up getting poisoned and have to go to the hospital. Again, anticipatory guidance comes back to that, understanding the child activities at certain ages. This is actually a burn here. So I think this was coffee. I can't remember the caption, but I've also seen rice pots with the boiling water teapots because they're curious. They want to do it for themselves. And same for water safety and drowning, near drowning. If there's a pool nearby, make sure that there's fences up, the gates are closed, they're never alone. Have flotation devices. There's I do not like that technique on that injection. They're going to poke their own finger. Regular immunizations and teaching the parents what to look for when to take the child to the doctor. And so that's toddlerhood. And then we'll look at the preschool child, which is somewhat similar because there are a lot of similarities and with a few differences. So I'm hoping that other one loaded pretty quickly. Let me go up and close this one and then see if that one will open up. And then this will be the last part of this particular lesson and video, and I will check out the links for that. And of course it doesn't want to load. So go ahead and see if it will download. There it goes. Okay, so let me do this. Let me stop sharing for a minute and then share again so I make sure that I get the right screen, unlike week 5. Okay, there we go. And so I'll just go through this way. So childhood, different pictures of preschool child. And not quite as many. Oops, there we go. Our objectives. So these children are older, 3 to 6 years old. They're getting ready to go to school by the end of this, into grade school. Again, growth is slow and steady, not as many growth spurts. Everything improves. They're more autonomous. They can do more by themselves. They explore still, and they're in preschool, so they're learning and exploring and getting a friend network together, hopefully. Okay, there we go. So talks about the physical characteristics, the growth patterns. They lose a lot of the subcutaneous fat that the toddler has, so they're a little bit leaner there. Muscle and bone development. So teeth, right? Daily brushing. Mom's brushing the teeth there. They should learn to floss. You should be flossing for them, and dental visits. And we're going to continue to check vision and hearing, do those screenings. And then some more gross motor skills. Again, the Denver will have this, Bright Futures will have this, things that they can do now. You'll often see these children, maybe 5 years old. I hate to think of 4-year-olds, but 5-year-olds that will now start to play team sports. They'll do soccer, basketball, t-ball. So those are gross motor skills. And then fine motor skills, being able to draw. There's little stick figures. That's pretty much how I draw. But there's some eyes and an eyebrow and a mouth, right? The parts are all there, which is good. This one looks like she's hula hooping, unless that's a skirt. They can get dressed. They need help with bathing, but they can feed themselves, more independent with toileting. They'll need help with their shoelaces. And then psychosocial. So this is initiative, right? So we've gone through autonomy and self-doubt. We know that, okay, I can do things on my own. And now, before I kind of had to ask permission, now I really want to take some initiative. So I'm going to decide when I play dress up that I want to be a doctor or that I want to cook like my mom. They're going to take this initiative to try things and pretend things. And so they really need good role models. And so as a healthcare professional, we need to model appropriate behavior, even in that short time that we might have them in the doctor's office or wherever we see them in the clinic. And we need to be good role models and teach the parents how to be good role models. For discipline, they're going to ask why. I hear people say all the time that the terrible twos, the twos are terrible. You haven't seen anything to get to 3 and 4-year-olds. It's yeah. And so you have to kind of, they just want to do everything, that initiative, right? And so they're going to ask why a lot. So timeouts, positive reinforcements, having conversations works to explain them things. So the pre-operational stage continues, like we said, with the toddler. And so they're looking at, they still can't really separate things out. They still have magical thinking. They think sometimes if they get sick, wrong one. If they get sick, it's because they did something wrong. They do have a longer attention span. They are better at sharing. They're not as egocentric. And they now have some prior experiences behind them, so they can kind of use those. Oh, I remember when you did this. Oh, okay. And they have reversibility. They will end up with reversibility, knowing that what goes one way can go the other way. What's hard for them is, and they get better at it, but the glass is 2 different shapes here. I don't know if you can, oops. I am so sorry. There we go. But it's the same amount. It actually has the same amount of water in it. And so they learn that theory of conservation. Kohlberg. So now finally we're sort of into a Kohlberg stage for morality. And it's called the pre-conventional stage. And they are learning to model and imitate adult behaviors. And most of their behavior is based on, especially for toddlers, is based on they don't want to get punished. They don't want to get in trouble. As they go through school age, they get past the preschooler and toddler of not being in trouble. They want to then, I don't want to say it, like they want to model and imitate. They want to do the right thing is what they want to do. We're not really going to focus on Freud much at all. I mean, we talk about him, the id and the super ego and your conscience. But preschool, yay, looking at cognitive, motor, social development, language development, how to work things out with each other, getting friends. We learned how to we're toilet trained at home, but can we be toilet trained at preschool? Hopefully we can. And then how are we going to teach them, right? We still, like mom can still help brush teeth, but if the child's like 5 or 6, they may not really want that. So the child can brush their teeth, but maybe like in this picture, mom should brush teeth too. Like you do it together. And then that way you can keep an eye and make sure that they're doing it correctly. And then daycare. So a lot of us work. That wasn't always the way. A lot of times the mom would, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. The mom would be home and dad would be working. Now it's double income families, generally speaking. So a lot of children spend a lot of time in daycare. There's family daycare centers, there's preschool, in-home. Some people have a nanny or caretaker come in, and things to look at. When choosing a daycare, there's a lot of references online that you can find as well. But, looking at the student to teacher ratio, do they have any complaints against them? Talking to some of the other parents, looking and actually seeing how the children interact with each other is also something that's important. Communication, they're playing on their banana phones. Although nowadays we have the cell phones and the kids see us with the cell phones, and I see 2 and 3-year-olds playing games on the mom's cell phone. But they can put sentences together now. Words really have a meaning for them, and sometimes they can't find the right words, so you have to kind of help them a little bit. But they are preparing for the school world to be school-age children. They need a few more calories now that they're preschoolers. We still go back to the My Plate is a good reference. They still need a lot of sleep. I'm not so sure I like them sleeping on their desks, but it's a clever solution. Again, the consistency is still so important. And then sexual development. So 5, 6-year-olds, that's about when they start to really realize, oh, your body looks different than what my body looks like, or your body looks the same as my body, and we're both girls or we're both boys. And then a lot of times they'll end up bonding with the daughter with the dad, and the son with the mom. Sometimes you'll also see children this age playing with themselves. So that the term for that is masturbation. Could be a sign of abuse because most 5 and 6-year-olds don't know the terms for sexual acts or things like that. And but it could just be curiosity too. So you kind of need to do that anticipatory guidance with the parent that they might do that, and to kind of just talk with the child about, hey, what you doing? What's going on? Not like rush in and immediately say, no, stop that. Because then they think it's bad, and it might be a sign of something. It might be a good teaching opportunity. Physical activity, again, 60 minutes or more a day, doing all kinds of activity. Not sitting on the couch playing video games, out riding the bike and playing team sports and cooperative play, which is what they're doing now. They can kick a ball and like they're playing house. You can see that one, right? And so they're cooperating while they're cooking. Love that imagination. And then safety. So immunizations again are huge. The safety restraints, booster seats, stranger safety, water safety, poisoning, stilt that falls, burns. Also now make sure that the clothes are fire retardant, that they're flame resistant, fire retardant, so that they don't, if there's a fire, the pajamas don't burn on them. And then that would be that's a wrap slide. So that covers oh, got it, yay. That covers early childhood. So we covered toddlers and preschoolers in that one, so it is a little bit long, so I apologize for that, but I will move on to the middle childhood one in the next video, and then the adolescent after that. And I hope you found some interesting information, and I will see you later. Thank you so much.